Long ago, in a quiet village surrounded by dense forests and shimmering rivers, there lived a fearsome spirit known as Wili-Wili. The villagers whisper her name in hushed tones, for she was said to be a creature of the night, wandering the land in search of mischief makers and lost souls. Wili-Wili was neither wholly evil nor entirely kind. She was a being of mystery, her presence a lesson to those who dared to stray from the path of wisdom. Wili-Wili was once a beautiful young woman named Obianuju, gifted with a voice so melodic that even the river would pause its flow to listen. The birds and animals stopped to listen to her singing. She lived a life of joy and freedom, wandering the forests and fields to share her songs with nature and all who cared to hear. She was the dream of every man. Men and princes from different villages brings gifts, wants her as bride, but she refused. But Obianuju was also reckless, fearless, proud and willful, ignoring the warnings of the elders. They often said, "Beware of the sacred grove after dark, for at a place where spirits danced under the moonlight." To her, these warnings were nothing but tales meant to frighten. One night, during a full moon, Obianuju decided to test the truth of the elders' stories. "Why should the spirits have the most beautiful place to themselves?" she muttered, clutching her lantern. With each step into the grove, her heart raced with excitement and fear. The air grew colder as she ventured deeper. Suddenly, a host of spirits appeared, their forms glowing and ethereal. They danced and sang, their voices like whispers carried on the wind. At first, they did not notice her. But when her lantern light flickered across their forms, their eyes turned toward her with anger. Obianuju fell to her knees as the spirits encircled her, their glowing forms swirling like mist in the moonlight. Her heart pounded as she realized the gravity of her mistake. The lead spirit, tall and regal with eyes as cold as winter frost, stepped forward and pointed a shimmering finger at her. "You dared to disturb our sacred grove," one spirit boomed, its voice echoing like thunder. "You, a mortal, have broken the ancient law." "I meant no harm," Obianuju cried, her voice trembling. Tears streamed down her face as she clasped her hands together. "I only wanted to see the beauty of your dance. Please forgive me." The spirits murmured among themselves, their whispers sharp and cutting, like dry leaves scraping against stone. The lead spirit shook its head. "Your curiosity was born of pride, Obianuju. And for your pride, you must pay the price." "No," Obianuju wailed, clutching at the hem of the spirit's robe. "Please, I beg you. Don't take my life, don't curse me." The spirit's glowing eyes bore into her. "We shall not take your life. But you will long for its end. You will wander the night, unseen by those who once loved you, feared by those who hear your song. You will become a warning to those who, like you, defy wisdom." Before she could plead further, a cold wind howled through the grove. The spirits raised their arms, and the air itself seemed to twist and warp around her. Obianuju screamed as the transformation began. Her skin turned pale as moonlight, her vibrant features dissolving into an ethereal, ghostly form. With a flowing white gown shimmered like mist, and her eyes began to burn with an unearthly glow, their fiery light reflecting her anguish. "No, no," she cried, her voice now a haunting melody, echoing into the night. The spirits stepped back, their task complete. The lead spirit looked at her one final time. "You are now Wili-Wili, the night spirit. Let your song serve as a warning, and may you find wisdom in the endless darkness." As the spirits vanished, Obianuju, now Wili-Wili, collapsed to the ground. She touched her face, feeling its cold, spectral texture. Her voice shook as she whispered to herself, "What have I become?" The silence of the grove pressed down on her, a heavy reminder that she was now alone. She rose to her feet, her movements weightless and unnatural. When she tried to walk, she glided instead, her body moving as if carried by an invisible wind. "No!" she screamed into the night, her voice echoing across the forest. "You can't leave me like this." But the spirits were gone, and the grove was silent. Wili-Wili's glowing eyes filled with spectral tears, and she let out a haunting wail that reverberated through the trees. From that night on, her sorrowful melody became the song of the night, chilling the hearts of anyone who heard it. But for her family, friends, and the entire village, her disappearance brought a different kind of torment, one that ran deep into their souls. Obianuju's mother, Adaku, was the first to notice her absence. When Obianuju failed to return home after sunset, Adaku's worry turned to panic. She called out her daughter's name, her voice echoing through the village. "Obianuju! Obianuju, where are you?" She ran from hut to hut, asking neighbors if they had seen her daughter. Perhaps she is in the fields, one suggested. Maybe she's gone to the river, another offered. But as night fell and there was still no sign of Obianuju, the weight of fear pressed heavily on Adiku's chest. She clutched her wrapper tightly around her shoulders, rocking back and forth by the hearth. She promised to come back before dark, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. She promised. The next morning, Adiku and the villagers formed a search party. They combed the fields, the riverbanks, and the outskirts of the sacred grove. Obianuju's younger brother, Nkem, called out her name at the top of his lungs, his voice breaking. "Sister, please come back. Where are you?" But there was no answer. Only the eerie stillness of the forest greeted them, and the grove itself seemed colder, more foreboding than ever before. As days passes by, hope began to fade. Adiku became a shadow of her former self, her once bright eyes now hollow and sunken. She sat by the fire every evening, clutching Obianuju's favorite scarf, and stared into the flames. "My Obianuju," she whispered. "Where are you, my child? What did I do to deserve this?" Her husband, Ease, tried to console her. "Perhaps the spirits have taken her to a better place," he said softly, though even he did not believe his own words. "We must trust the gods." But Adiku shook her head. "No. She is not gone. I can feel it in my bones. My child is out there, somewhere, crying for me." Every night, Adiku's cries joined the haunting melody that floated through the air, the song of Wili-Wili. Though she did not know it, the ghostly voice she heard belonged to the very daughter she mourned. Each note pierced her heart like a blade, a sorrow she could not explain but could not escape. The villagers, too, were gripped by grief and unease. They whispered about Obianuju's disappearance and the strange song that now filled the night air. "It began the very night she vanished," an elder remarked, stroking his beard. "This is no coincidence. It is the work of the spirits," another said, lowering her voice. "She must have angered them." Fear spread like wildfire. Parents forbade their children from wandering too far, and no one dared to enter the sacred grove. "Stay close to home," they warned. "The spirits are watching." Obianuju's closest friends, Amaka and Ifani, bore their grief differently. They often sat by the edge of the forest, where they had once played together, staring into the shadows as if hoping she might emerge. "She was so fearless," Amaka said one evening, her voice trembling. "She would have laughed at us for sitting here, afraid of the dark." "She always said she wanted to see the spirits," Ifani replied, his eyes wet with tears. Maybe they took her." Amaka turned to him, her expression filled with guilt. "We should have stopped her that day. We should have told her to stay away from the grove." Ease and Adiku set out to visit the oracle, a reclusive seer who lived on the edge of the forest. The oracle's dwelling was a small, thatched hut surrounded by ancient trees. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and smoke from a smoldering fire. Inside the oracle, a wizened man with piercing eyes and a voice that seemed to echo with the wisdom of ages, sat cross-legged on a mat. "You seek answers about the one who sings in the night," the oracle said before anyone could speak, his gaze fixed on Adiku. "The child you have lost." Adiku fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Great One," she begged, her voice cracking. "Is it true? Is it my Obianuju we hear? Is she alive?" The oracle's face darkened. He took a handful of kola nuts from a small calabash and cast them onto the ground. As the nuts rolled and settled, he studied their arrangement, his expression unreadable. The room fell into an oppressive silence, the crackle of the fire the only sound. After what felt like an eternity, the oracle spoke. "It is her voice you hear," he confirmed. "But she is no longer among the living. She has become one with the spirits of the night." Gasps rippled through the room. Adiku collapsed into Isa's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. No, this cannot be." The oracle's voice softened, though it carried an undeniable weight. She defied the sacred law and entered the grove of the spirits. For this, they cursed her to wander as Wili-Wili, the ghostly one. Her song is her lament, her cry for the life she has lost. Isa's voice broke as he asked, "Is there no way to bring her back? No way to free her?" The oracle shook his head slowly. "Once a soul has crossed into the realm of the spirits, it cannot return. She is bound to her fate." "But," he paused, his gaze piercing, "you can honor her memory. Speak her name with love, and teach others to respect the laws of the spirits. Only then will her wandering bring peace instead of fear." In the days that followed, Wili-Wili wandered aimlessly. Her ghostly form passed through the village, but no one saw her. She reached for her family, her mother cooking by the fire, her younger brother laughing with friends, but her hands passed through them like smoke. "Mother," she cried, her voice trembling with despair. "It's me, Obianuju." Her mother paused, her brow furrowed as if she had heard something, but then shook her head and continued her work and murmured, "What if it's my daughter Obianuju?" Wili-Wili reached out again, her glowing eyes now filled with sorrow. "I'm right here. Please look at me." But no one could see her. No one could hear her. She was truly alone. Days turned to weeks, and Wili-Wili began to understand her role. She was no longer Obianuju, the carefree girl who sang with joy. She was Wili-Wili, the haunting spirit meant to guide others away from the mistakes she had made. One evening, young Chika, a mischievous boy, refused to help his mother fetch water from the stream. "Let someone else do it," he grumbled, running off to play instead. His mother shook her head. "Chika, beware. Wili-Wili sees those who disobey." Chika laughed. "I'm not afraid of any ghost." Wili-Wili's glowing eyes narrowed. "A child defying his elders," she murmured, her voice like the rustle of leaves. "Perhaps he needs to learn." That night, as he lay in his hut, a cold draft swept through the room. He woke to the sound of a soft humming. It was beautiful yet haunting, and it seemed to come from nowhere. Then from the corner of the room, Wili-Wili appeared, her glowing eyes piercing the darkness. "Chika," she whispered, her voice like the rustle of dry leaves. "Why do you disobey your mother?" Wili-Wili glided closer, her ghostly hand reaching out. She lightly touched his arm, and a sharp, icy pain shot through him. Who are you?" he stammered. "I am Wili-Wili," she said, her voice soft but chilling. I was just playing," Chika whispered, trembling. "I didn't mean to." Her eyes burned brighter. Disobedience has a cost. She raised her ghostly hand, touching his arm. He screamed as a cold pain seared into his skin, leaving a faint scar. "Let this be your reminder. Obey your parents, or next time, the scar will not be so small." As she vanished into the night, Chika, tears streaming down his face. From that day on, he listened to every word his parents said. That night, as Wili-Wili returned to the forest, she stood by the river, staring at her ghostly reflection in the water. The face that looked back at her was not the Obianuju she once knew. Her glowing eyes and spectral form were a constant reminder of her curse. "Perhaps," she whispered to herself, "this is my purpose now. To teach others the wisdom I ignored." Though her heart ached with loneliness, she resolved to fulfill her role. Her song, now filled with sorrow and warning, echoed through the forest, a melody that carried both fear and a lesson for all who heard it. As Wili-Wili, she roamed the forests and villages, her song now a haunting melody that sent chills down the spines of those who heard it. She appeared as a ghostly figure clad in flowing white robes, her eyes burning brightly like twin lanterns in the darkness. Her presence was as fleeting as the wind, and she seemed to melt into the shadows when approached. But her glowing eyes always lingered, searing into the memories of those who dared to look directly at her. Wili-Wili was a spirit of warning and punishment, especially for disobedient children. The elders often warned, "Do not defy your parents, or Wili-Wili will come for you." True to their words, when children refused to listen to their parents, Wili-Wili would appear at night, her glowing eyes piercing the darkness as she glided silently into their rooms. She would let out a soft, eerie laugh before reaching out with ghostly hands to leave a faint scar on their arms or legs as a permanent reminder to obey their parents. The scars were not painful, but they served as a lasting warning. Children who bore Wili-Wili's mark became more respectful and careful, knowing they had narrowly escaped her full wrath. Wili-Wili did not limit her visits to disobedient children. She appeared randomly to scare villagers who ventured out at night or ignored the customs meant to honor the spirits. Travelers who wandered too far from the village often found themselves face to face with her glowing eyes, her white figure drifting silently toward them. Some fainted in terror, while others ran, their screams echoing through the trees. One moonless night, Okachukwu, a brash hunter, ventured into the forest, ignoring the elders' warnings. He laughed at the idea of spirits. "Ghosts don't hunt. What can they do to me?" he scoffed. As he set his trap, the forest grew unnaturally quiet. The sound of a woman's humming drifted through the air, growing louder. He turned, his heart pounding, and saw her. Wili-Wili. Her figure was bathed in an eerie white glow, her eyes burning like embers in a dying fire. "Do you think the forest is yours to take?" she asked, her voice calm but filled with menace. Okachukwu dropped his spear. "Please forgive me," he cried, falling to his knees. Wili-Wili tilted her head, studying him. "You are forgiven for now. But if you disrespect the spirits again, I will not be so kind." Okachukwu returned to the village, pale and trembling. From then on, he offered a prayer before every hunt and taught his children to do the same. One day, a clever young girl named Adana decided to confront Wili-Wili. The village had been plagued by her nightly songs and random appearances, which left everyone on edge. Adana sought out the oldest elder, who told her that Wili-Wili's curse could be softened if someone sang a song of forgiveness and hope. "I will speak to her," she said. Her mother grabbed her arm. "Are you mad? Wili-Wili is not one to reason with. She was once human, was she not? I will remind her of that." Armed with this knowledge, Adana took her drum and walked into the forest at dusk. It was full moon. The air was heavy with silence. Then, Wili-Wili's song began, echoing through the trees. Adana answered with a song of her own. She beat her drum and sang, her voice trembling at first but growing stronger with each verse.
"O spirit of the night, once you sang with joy and light, let my song reach your heart and mend the pain that keeps us apart. The stars above still know your name, their whispers call you just the same. Remember the love that gave you birth and find your way back to peace on earth. Your melody haunts the midnight air, a song of sorrow, deep despair. But I sing for hope, for love to grow, to heal the wounds you've come to know. Oh, spirit lost in endless flight, release your tears into the night. Let your voice blend with mine once more and find the solace you long for.
As Adana sang, her voice wavered with emotion, each note rising like a prayer into the starry sky. Wili-Wili stood still, listening to Adana's song, her spectral tears shimmering like dewdrops in the moonlight. The haunting melody of Wili-Wili grew softer in response, her ghostly form appearing from the shadows. For the first time, her glowing eyes seemed to dim, not in anger or sorrow, but in a kind of quiet, tentative peace. Adana's song spoke of love, forgiveness, and the beauty of the moonlit night. The melody was so pure and heartfelt that Wili-Wili appeared before her, her glowing eyes softened by tears. For the first time in many years. "Why do you seek me, child?" she asked, her voice softer than before. Adana knelt, her eyes filled with tears. "You were once like us. You know love and sorrow. Please, let us live in peace." Wili-Wili's glowing eyes dimmed, and a tear slid down her ghostly cheek. "I have been alone for so long," she whispered. "But your courage has touched me. I will no longer harm those who obey the ways of the land." Wili-Wili felt the warmth of kindness. She promised to protect the village and only scare those who needed to learn respect. From that day forward, Wili-Wili's appearances became less frequent. She continued to roam the village and forests, but now her hauntings served as a reminder to respect the wisdom of the elders and the balance of nature. Children who disobeyed still heard her chilling laugh in the wind, and travelers still glimpsed her white figure in the distance, but these encounters were lessons, not punishments. The villagers sang songs of her tale under the moonlight, honoring her as a protector and a warning. And Wili-Wili herself, though cursed to wander, found solace in knowing she was no longer feared, but respected, a ghost of the night whose story would live on for generations.